In this video, I'm going to tell you why boxing is not the best for self-defense. Now, I imagine there's one half of you guys that are watching right now that may have just started yelling angrily at your screen, and then you realize that that's not doing anything, so you went and you started taking out your anger on your grandma.
Hi, Grandma.
Jesus, what?
Don't do that. She baked you cookies when you were young. Relax, man. Just chill out. And the other half of you are probably thinking, yes, boxing is terrible. Andrew Tate was wrong, right? You guys just chill out as well. If you think it is the best, you're gonna disagree with me, but then you're gonna start to see where I'm coming from. If you think I'm right and you're like, yes, boxing is terrible for self-defense, you're probably gonna start to really agree with me, and then as I get to the end of the video, start to dislike me a little more than you do at the moment. So either way, stick with the video. I'm gonna tell you why boxing is not the best for self-defense. Let's do it. Okay, so I'm gonna do this through reacting to this video by Coach V. The title is Why Boxing is Better Than Martial Arts. I think me reacting to this video is a good way for me to give you my thoughts. One, I think it's generally more engaging for you guys, and two, I'm going to be able to respond to the actual points being made here instead of me just talking off the top of my head. Now, I'm going into this as someone who has experience doing boxing, doing Muay Thai, doing Jiu-Jitsu, doing a little bit of judo, like a tiny little bit of judo, doing some wrestling, doing some of that one that we don't talk about, Krav Maga, and doing a hell of a lot of combatives. So I've got a bit of experience in all of it. I think I can give a pretty reasonable take on it all. So let's get straight to it.
A lot of martial artists proclaim that boxing is too limited for the real world. So let me give you a little bit of background as to how untrue that is. So for example, not all fights start out grappling. So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is not effective in most street fight scenarios. If you have multiple attackers, you got a whole 180 degrees of your back completely unprotected. That's a death sentence in a street fight scenario, number one. Number two, for you law enforcement people, grappling with a loaded weapon is probably the last thing you want to be doing, because that means at that point you've already let things escalate past the line in the sand mentality. And don't get me wrong, anything could happen, but you know, keeping somebody at a distance and then giving them a good one and putting them down is a lot better than sitting there tussling, rolling around the ground with a whole belt of weapons on you. If it happens, it happens. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying that's not ideal.
Look, I'm just going to give you I'm watching this video for the first time. My first thought is I understand what he's saying about the law enforcement angle, but insofar as I can tell, the grappling is a last resort, right? Law enforcement officers, police officers, security guard, whatever the hell you are, you've got a range of non-lethal tactics. You've got pepper spray, you've got tasers, and then you've got your batons, and then you've got your guns. I think it's only once, like, you absolutely have to, like, that person has somehow managed to close that distance, would you be grappling, right? So if I'm going to be boxing someone, and I'm thinking, all right, wait, we're going, I've got my hands up, we're boxing, I'm jabbing, I'm crossing, I'm hooking, I got head movement going. If I'm at that range where I haven't actually physically touch the person yet, why am I not using pepper spray? Why am I not using my baton to add that additional layer of safety? Why am I not getting my taser out so I don't even have to touch the guy? It is very, very easy, particularly in like a real scenario where if I throw a shot, it doesn't really land on the guy, he gets pissed off and he charges and he closes that distance and grabs hold of you. It is very easy to do that, particularly in real life. There's tables around, there's walls, you can get pinned up against stuff. I don't think boxing is the magical answer to that. And I think, honestly, if I had a cop and I had to choose between giving them boxing or giving them jiu-jitsu, I'd probably give the cop jiu-jitsu. I think I would. And the reason simply is, at a distance, you've got pepper spray, you've got a baton, you've got a taser, you've got a wide variety of options at that distance that you can and probably should defer to. But once they've closed that distance, the time for trying to wrestle to get to your belt is kind of over. You have to deal with that threat, get out, so that you can access your tools. And in order to do that, you need good grappling. So the grappling, it's not a go-to. You shouldn't try to go in for a double leg as a cop. I think he has a point. Like, you're putting yourself at a risk. You've got your weapon on your belt. But if you're at that range, like, you've got those non-lethal tools, grappling is a last resort. And if you reach that last resort, you need to know how to do it. And I think you need to know how to do it more than you need to know how to box. That's my thoughts anyway. Let's move on.
The first 6 months to a year of boxing training will make you way more efficient than any belt-oriented martial arts system, from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to Taekwondo to Judo, you name it, with the exception of kickboxing, in particular Muay Thai. Boxing will outmaneuver any of those styles after the first 6 months to a year. Let me explain.
Okay, He just said, let me explain, but to me, that sounds wild. That sounds crazy. When he first said that, I thought he was going to say boxing after the first 6 months to a year is going to be so much better than Taekwondo and traditional karate. That would be a reasonable claim. But to say that boxing is going to be better than any belt-orientated martial art, including Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and including Judo, I think that's kind of wild. Your more traditional styles of martial arts, like karate or Taekwondo, in my experience, on average, if you go to a class teaching these martial arts, you'll spend a lot of time doing things that aren't necessarily very practical. Learning katas or forms, or learning unnecessarily complicated movements that can't be easily applied in a true self-defense scenario. And learning to do those things in a way that's based on scoring points, not necessarily on like doing damage and actually taking somebody out. In that sense, I think boxing, on average, particularly your first 6 months to a year, you're going to get a lot more out of it than your first 6 months to a year of karate or Taekwondo. 100% agree with him on that. Where I'm not so sure is when he starts to rope other very practical martial arts into this that are based on belts as well. He roped in Jiu-Jitsu and Judo. The second someone grabs onto you who's a bit bigger than you, or the second someone pins you up against the wall, you're done. There's no answer to that in boxing. There is no answer to the clinch other than waiting for the referee to split you guys up. There's really nothing for you to do there, which is why you need Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In the same way, there's no defending yourself if you only know Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because you're likely going to have to deal with that circumstance where the guy's not quite on top of you yet, and you're not on the ground, and he's trying to punch you in the head. If you don't know how to deal with that, you're not going to have a good time. So you really need both. Now, in terms of like comparing these to each other and saying which one is better, I've been on both ends of this, right? I've been the guy who's only really done striking, and I've faced a grappler and I've been like, I'm going to knock you out. There's no way you're taking me down. There's been times I've succeeded and I've hit him and he hasn't been able to take me down, and I've stuffed the takedowns. And there's been times where I really dedicated to a shot, I missed, he got a double leg, and then I was just ragdolled on the floor the whole time. Similarly, I've been the guy, particularly in more recent history, who's really tried to tie up in the clinch and really go for the takedown, while the other one's a lot better at boxing or at striking. I've been in the situation where I've been picked apart and I haven't been able to get that takedown. I've also been in the situation where I've been able to get that takedown and then ragdoll them on the floor. No matter what side of this on, if you train consistently for 6 months to a year, you're going to get competent at that skill set. But you do need both. You cannot settle for only one of these. If you do that, you're going to be incomplete. And if you come across someone else who's been training for the same amount of time in that other discipline, that be Jiu-Jitsu or Judo, you're gonna have a hard time. The only exception to that is if you've been training boxing and the person you're like having to fight against in this instance has been training Judo, and that person has no grit to them. They have no ability to take a punch. They've never practiced covering their head or anything to that effect. Then yeah, my money's probably on the boxer, just because the Judo guy is going to be taken off guard by the simple matter of having punches thrown at him. But in general, you need both. So striking can beat grappling, grappling can beat striking, even if you've both been training for 6 months to a year. I'm just not sold on that. I'm not sold on that idea. Comparing boxing to traditional martial arts like karate and Taekwondo, I think boxing kicks the crap out of them 99% of the time. Comparing boxing to Judo or boxing to wrestling, I am not as convinced.
I come from a background of martial arts. Way before I did boxing, from the age of like 6 all the way up to my early teens, I did Taekwondo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Judo. I tried it all. And a couple things I don't like. Don't get me wrong, they got their pros and their cons. If you're in a one-on-one fight with a bigger guy with equal striking ability, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the way to go. The submissions are second to none, they're great. But that's not practical in all scenarios, and definitely not in a street fight scenario.
The thing that got me there was the phrasing, that's not practical in all scenarios. And that brings me to something that I'm really glad that you guys, my subscribers, my commenters say, nothing is really practical in all scenarios, is it? Like, boxing isn't practical in all scenarios. Sometimes you're in a confined environment and the guy's bigger than you and you don't have the footwork. In that case, you're probably going to end up having to grapple. Sometimes you're in a wide open space and you don't really know the person attacking you. Maybe there's more than one. In that case, you're going to want to focus on footwork, keeping both feet on the floor, focusing on striking primarily with your hands. You've got to be able to look at the scenario and say, okay, what should I do here based on the infinite amount of variables? A wrestler could make the same point here, and he could go, boxing is just not practical in all scenarios. Sometimes you need to wrestle, so that's why wrestling is better. So, okay, we're just cherry picking shit at this point. Maybe I should let him talk more. Should I let him talk more? I don't know, man.
When you're talking about getting used to being hit, right? I don't think there's enough body hardening and conditioning in most martial arts. If you're going into like an MMA academy, that's a little bit different, but I don't see like a system yet, in my opinion. I've been looking around. If there's one, put it in the comment section that really, in a well-rounded fashion, encompasses all the aspects of boxing, striking, footwork, upper body mobility, all the defensive, aspects of it.
I will comment on that. I do think that on average, jiu-jitsu, you can get away with being really good at jiu-jitsu and having terrible conditioning, both in terms of your fitness and in terms of your toughness. I've been to multiple jiu-jitsu skills, and you really do get people who are, they're not particularly physically fit, they're not particularly muscular, they're not particularly tough, but you don't really need to be that tough because you're not getting hit. There's no impact. You don't really need to be that muscular if your technique's really good. You don't need to be that fit if you can kind of lie on your back and just not lazily, like they're good, but you know what I mean? You can kind of lie on your back and use pure technique and there's no risk of getting cracked in the face. 100% I agree with that. I've witnessed that at multiple schools. Wrestling, different story. Everyone's jacked, everyone's doing backflips, everyone is super conditioned, both in body and in mind. I think wrestling really stands up to boxing, absolutely, in terms of conditioning. At the end of every session, I'm out of breath, I'm puffed, and yeah, conditioning's been done as much as it can possibly be done. And everyone's really tough, you're really getting impacted on consistently. So wrestling, I don't think that applies, but jiu-jitsu, I've definitely seen that be applied as well, 100%.
If you look back in boxing, right, in 6 months of training back in the New York Golden Gloves, back in the day, you would see what's called the sub-novice category, right? These are people that only got, 6 months experience, give or take, fighting in the Golden Gloves and looking impressive. Once you get your footwork and your basics down, you're pretty much in a whole nother level on the self-defense note than the average person. You can move around, you know how to gauge distance, you know where your reflexes are at, you've been training yourself, and there's a lot more, again, of an emphasis on body hardening and physical athleticism and developing that combination of durability and performance.
What I will say to that is, I think he has a good point in that with boxing, you only have to worry about your hands, your head movement, your footwork, and your reaction to 2 of your opponent's limbs. Most people are only really going to try to strike you with 2 limbs, so that's good. And it gives you a lot less to worry about when you're comparing it to kickboxing or Muay Thai, right? A lot less to focus on, which means you're focusing on less. And if you can focus more on less, you're going to be getting better at that more quickly. So that does make sense, right? In 6 months to a year, you're probably going to progress faster at the skills of boxing than you would at Muay Thai or kickboxing, for example, simply because you have to spread your attention out across less areas of focus. You don't have to worry about setting up kicks with punches or how to defend kicks as well as punches. You can slip and you can do things that you can't do if people are kicking, right? You can really duck your head low because you don't have to worry about that knee coming in, or you don't have to worry about someone grabbing hold of the back of your head as you duck low and then using that to like push you towards the floor as they follow up. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So in that sense, you can get better at it quicker. I do think that's true. And I do think if you were to put someone in like boxing or kickboxing or Muay Thai, the person in boxing would improve faster than the others, simply because there's less to focus on.
I would say like the black belt is kind of like what people compare, is like the martial arts comparison to like Golden Gloves, I guess. I hear people saying that, like people put that in the same category often. To me, that's ridiculous, because if you got a Golden Glove, even if it's back in the day in the sub-novice category, you're battle tested. You've done more work in a competitive, violent situation than 99% of most martial artists. And again, MMA is evolving tremendously, and guys that are putting together systems of grappling, submissions, and striking together, and there's a few already out there, but again, not something I've seen like across the board. And again, put it in the comment section if I'm unaware.
I don't know about that. It depends black belt in what. Black belt in karate, I was almost a black belt in karate by the age of like 17, and that was all bullshit. Most people could walk through me at that point. I was a brown belt black tip. Well, I was all right. I could handle myself a little bit, but Golden Glove would mess me up. But the black belt in jiu-jitsu, black belt in judo, someone who can confidently, aggressively close that distance and get in on you? Nah. I don't think so. That's all I got to say on that one. That's it. I don't have anything intricate or interesting.
You're much better off just starting out with boxing. Even if you plan on converting to one of those martial arts later, the background of boxing being brought to those martial arts systems will make you way more effective from whatever point they pick up and they start showing you their system. So anyway, that's just my personal opinion. Boxing is the way to go for beginners.
I don't know about that one simply because from boxing, you can get a lot of really bad habits that don't translate well into self-defense or into Muay Thai or kickboxing, for example. Your foot placement is completely different. If you've got boxing footwork and foot placement, a leg kick can send you flying. Yeah, it's really, you're going to have to unlearn a lot and relearn it all in a way that's completely different. And I don't agree with that at all. I think, I don't agree with that statement.
It'll encompass a lot more and make you a lot more effective in the early stages of the game. You tell me what you think in the comment section. Go check me out on Instagram at coach.v_. Like, subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell, and link in the description. My new online course is out. It's amazing. Go check it out. So the next time we up out of here.
All right, so that was Coach V. Why boxing is better than martial arts, BJJ/judo, etc. Go check out his course. Maybe it's good. Fuck if I know. So look, here's my raw impression of what I think in relation to, is boxing the best or not? I think of all of the combat sports or martial arts you could choose, number one is Muay Thai, and boxing would probably be like, kickboxing would probably be number two. Oh, actually, no, I'd probably say I'm just winging this, by the way. I'd probably say Muay Thai is number one. The reason being, Muay Thai, you've got punching, elbowing, kicking, kneeing, and you also have, here's the key, clinching and sweeping. The reason that is so important, right? In a self-defense situation, you're probably not going to be going 1-2 switch kick. You're probably not going to be doing that too much. But what you will be doing is you'll be engaging with hands and elbows, and at some point there, someone's going to come crashing forward into you and they're going to latch on. Muay Thai gives you the ability and the skill, when that person latches on, you know how to take them, turn, sweep. You know how to use that momentum against them. You know how to engage in the clinch. You know how to push off their face, knee, get that distance, and start striking again. With boxing, there's no solution to someone who's really strong and who's latching onto you. There's just nothing there for you to do except for wait for the referee. So I'd put Muay Thai at number one because it does give you pretty much all standing skills you need, whilst boxing leaves some lack. There's some to be lusted after. I don't know. Is that weird for me? You know what I mean? I would though. I think I'd probably put boxing just underneath Muay Thai. Maybe even above kickboxing. I'm just making this up as I go. I haven't scripted or thought about this. The reason being, I think kickboxing, sometimes it's good to be able to use your hands and your feet. But some kickboxing, you can't catch kicks, which can lead to you developing really bad kicking habits. I remember I did my kickboxing fight. The rule set was that you couldn't catch kicks. So like these people were throwing sloppy kicks and I kept catching and I was getting disqualified for it. And I was just thinking, oh man, if this was real, I would have caught that and you'd be on your ass. And I'd be ground and pounding the fuck out of you. But I couldn't, right? So you can get some really bad habits. And also sometimes it's a little too fancy as in relation to what you actually need for self-defense. Muay Thai is sheer brutality. It's sheer power. Strike, knee, grab, turn, knee. Kickboxing, sometimes you can get a bit like 1-2 kick, 1-2 spinning back kick, 1-2 head kick, leg kick, and it's just a bit like, it's a bit flashy. So I think for that reason, I go Muay Thai, boxing underneath Muay Thai, just because boxing, again, all practical. It is all practical, absolutely. And then kickboxing under that. I don't know if I'd really say to do any other style of striking. Bro, can you even talk? Jesus. There's no other style I'd really recommend, to be honest. Muay Thai, and then boxing, and then kickboxing after that. Choose one of those three, right? Pair that with either Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or wrestling, or judo. You should be fine. My personal preference of that combination would be pair Muay Thai with wrestling. I think Muay Thai, like I said, has everything you need for standing. Wrestling is really good at just consistent offensive pressure. You're consistently offensive. There's no point where you're like lazily lying on your back and you're kind of like, you can do a jiu-jitsu class without ever getting out of breath. You cannot do the first 10 seconds of a wrestling class without getting out of breath. I think that's really important. And it goes to Coach V's point about conditioning. So is boxing the best for self-defense? No, but it's still pretty good. And if you can't find a Muay Thai or mixed martial arts place around, then do boxing. It's great. All right, guys, look, Now I'm looking to do my usual videos where I make fun of like terrible self-defense techniques very soon. I just have to find someone who can film with me in the next 1 to 2 weeks, because when I first started this channel, I was like 20, 21. I was a full-time uni student. Now I got a 9 to 5 job, so I'm trying to operate within those hours, right? Life's changed a little bit. It can be a bit tricky, but I'm doing my best. Stick with me. In the meantime, if you do want to support this channel, you can head over to Patreon. I do release videos early on Patreon, and you can be the first to see them there. Otherwise, if you want to watch my kickboxing fights, click here. And if you want to watch me try out some silly self-defense techniques, click here if you haven't seen that yet. Click there. All right, guys, catch you later. Let me know what you think in the comments, and let me know what type of video you want to see next. If I can only do a talking head video, let me know, right? What do you want me to talk about? All right, bye, guys. See ya.